Fire Reborn. North Valyria, Fort Draceryos, 187 AD. 85 AC. In the southeastern reaches of the Painted Mountains, where shadows stretch long after sunset and the wind whispers in forgotten tongues, one of 5 demon forts rises high, unyielding and eternal. Made from deep black dragonstone, it stands untouched by time or decay. Stronger than any known stone, and built to outlast empires. Fort Draceryos. The stronghold and inheritance of House Draerios. The largest and most active of the 5 demon forts. Each demon fort is a city in its own right, capable of housing nearly 100,000 souls, though they usually hold between 40 and 60,000. Fort Draceryos alone holds 70,000. Noble families, mages, smiths, soldiers, merchants, and commoners all live within its walls. Every kind of shop, forge, market, and venue can be found here. It is also the headquarters of the 3 great orders, the Blood Dragon, the Fire Dragon, and the Secretive Order of Shadows. This is where House Draerios has ruled since the Doom, nearly 200 years of blood, fire, and watchfulness. Among the 4 Dragonlord families that survived, only we carry the full legacy of the 7 great Dragonlords of Old Valyria. The others were lost to fire and ruin. But not us. Never us. On a hill in the heart of the fortress stands the main house. A tall, dark structure of stone and sloped roofs. Inside it, in the family's private library, I sat at a desk carved from a single piece of weirwood. The air was filled with dust and old memories. Bookshelves covered every wall except where the hearth stood on the left and the tall double doors at my back. Across from me, 2 stained glass windows shone with color, images of dragons, spellcasters, soldiers, and our banners. And I just sat there. Silent. Dazed. Balthagar Draceryos, 187 AD. 85 AC. One moment I was dying. The next, I was here. Alive. Whole. But, different. I don't know how. I don't know why. But this is real. Planetos. The Painted Mountains. Fort Draceryos. And I am Balthagar Draceryos, head of House Draerios, heir to our ancient power. The Targaryens claim to be great dragonlords. They are not. No great dragon. No true legacy. Survivors, not rulers. We are the bloodline of greatness. And there's more. I was given something, no, gifted. I don't know how, but I feel it inside me like a second heartbeat, the force. Not quite as I knew it. Here, it moves differently. It bends and twists alongside what this world calls magic. And it obeys. Easily. Force techniques, push, pull, sight, domination, they come to me like breathing. But deeper still, something older waits. A holocron. In my mind. Only I can reach it. Not just any holocron, a Sith holocron. It pulses when I close my eyes, whispering with ancient voices. Sorza Sin. Naga Sato. Marka Ranos. Exer Kun. Vitiate. Dark Lords. They speak to me, about runes and rituals, spells and changes. How to shape metal. How to bend minds. How to mark souls. This isn't some trick. This is the heart of power. The beginning of rule. With this knowledge, I could build an empire like the world has never seen. Not even Valyria at its height. Why not? I descend from Aurion Draceryos, the first and only Emperor of Valyria. When he disappeared, his son Impaler swore that House Draerios would not claim the imperial title again until a true Valyrian stronghold had been established. That time is near. Right after the news of Aurion's death reached House Draerios, Impaler's brother, Aenir, led a mission into Valyria. He returned with their father's body, and more. The bones of Vassarion, the great dragon, along with some of his preserved dragon blood. Stormbringer, our family's sword. The Emperor's armor, ring, and crown. He also managed to reach deep enough into Valyria to recover the belongings of 2 great dragonlord houses, Draceryos and Maznarin. Artifacts, scrolls, books, weapons, armor, and many other things, known only to our bloodline. He found scrolls and relics from both Draceryos and Maznarin, things that should have burned. But they didn't. We didn't. With these, we built the demon forts. Strengthened the north of Valyria. Claimed the demon road and made all who pass pay. Those who tried to sneak through. Dead, or forced into servitude as worker slaves. Vaemor Draceryos, son of Impaler and my great-great-grandfather, dreamed of dragons and fire. Guided by those dreams, he expanded our land and made us strong. When Volantis sent 10,000 Unsullied to attack our western fort, he met them with only 1,500 dragon guards. 9,700 of the Unsullied died. Our banners still fly there. They never forgot. 1 year ago, someone, maybe Volantis, maybe someone else, hired the warlocks of the House of the Undying. With shadow magic, they struck. My father Tegan died instantly. My mother Elines Baleres and my brother Valur died screaming. I remember how my soul screamed with them. I put on my armor, Stormbringer by my side, and flew as Zontius, the Infernal, my great dragon, to Karth. I killed everyone. Burned everything. Broke minds before I broke bones. Took their scrolls, their treasures, their secrets. Then I burned it all. Let the world remember. This is the price of crossing House Draerios. It has been 3 months. I know who gave the order. But revenge must be timed. I will not rush. Now, there are other things. The holocron shows me flashes, bone runes, blood rituals. It speaks of giving life to flame. Of armor that channels the force. Of weapons filled with hate. There's a technique, only partly clear, that uses dragonfire, blood magic, and the force to create weapons stronger than Valyrian steel. Dragon forging. I will try it. Soon. One other image, quick and strange, shows beasts made from shadow and scale. Sith spawn. Not yet. That path is not ready. Not yet. Azontius stirs below. He feels my thoughts. A great dragon, a massive beast of fire and fury. He waits. The world waits. And I am awake. The age of fire has not ended. It is only just beginning. I rose from the desk and walked to the door of my solar. The guard stationed outside stood at attention the moment I stepped out. Fetch the steward, I ordered. Now. He bowed and rushed off. Minutes later, the steward arrived, a man of about 50, with shoulder-length platinum gold hair tied neatly behind his head, and eyes of pale violet that shimmered faintly in the torchlight. His features were smooth for his age, still holding the ageless beauty of High Valyrian blood. He was loyal. Trained. Known as Valoran. My prince, you called. I will be descending into the family dungeon for a few days. I am not to be disturbed for any reason, I said. Send word to the heads of the families and to the leaders of the 3 orders. I want the Grand Master of the Order of the Blood Dragon, the Grand Master of the Order of the Fire Dragon, and the Grand Master of the Order of Shadows summoned. They are to arrive within the end of the week. The steward bowed low. As you command. The dungeon is secret, known only to a trusted few. Its entrances are hidden and warded. Deep below the manse, beneath layers of carved dragonstone and runes, it is secure in ways the surface could never be. Valyrian runes are etched into the stone walls, designed to detect intrusions, repel scrying, and gather what little ambient magic remains. It holds many chambers, vaults, alchemy labs, ritual halls, storerooms, and a library so vast it rivals the private collection of Aldtown. The tomes here are older, darker, and more dangerous. Magic lost to the doom. Theory and knowledge no school would dare to teach. There are meditation chambers and training rooms, forged and shaped by the runesmiths of House Draerios, the greatest rune forgers to ever live, even before the doom. This was our legacy among the great dragonlord houses, the mastery of runes and the magic of the forge, a craft tied deeply to both our blood and our will. Within the meditation chamber, a large circular hall lit by a ring of steady flame, stood 14 small statues, each one dedicated to a god of the 14 flames. They were placed there long ago by Balthagar Draceryos, carved by hand and bound with old magic. Arax, Egarax, Vagar, Caraxes, Merixes, Vermax, Meles, Valerian, Drakstar, Onyxa, Syrax, Tyraxes, Tessarian, and Shrikos. Each figure gazed inward toward the center of the chamber, silent witnesses to the legacy of blood and fire. It is also good to mention that it was within the heart of the demon fort of Draceryos itself, not hidden underground, but standing proud within its walls, that Balthagar Draceryos, my great-great-grandfather, commissioned the construction of a great cathedral. The only one of its kind in the world, dedicated to the 14 flames, the old gods of Valyria. Built for the people, for the High Valyrian faithful who had grown more devout since the doom. Some became zealous, others simply respectful, but many made pilgrimage to the cathedral, seeking closeness to the gods who were believed to be tied to the source of Valyria's great magic. We do not worship blindly. We are not like those who kneel for hope. But we understand the power these old gods represent. Some among the noble families pray. A few even sacrifice. And most, like me, respect them for what they are, eternal symbols of the source of all Valyrian magic. I sat cross-legged on the cold stone of the central chamber, surrounded by flickering braziers and the faint hum of old power. Sith meditation. I closed my eyes and began to whisper the words etched into my mind by the holocron, an oath remade for this world of fire and blood. Through strength, I shatter weakness. Through will, I break the chains of fate. Through blood and flame, I ascend unbound. Through legacy, I command the storm. Power is not given, it is seized, and in its mastery, I am reborn. The chains of the old gods shall break, and in their ashes, I shall rise. I am the fire that burns in silence, I am the blood that flows without end. Valyria lives through me, and through me, it shall conquer. I reached within, pulling from memory. The screams. The pain. My mother's last breath. My father's still corpse. Valur's voice calling out to me in fear. Anger. Hate. Grief twisted into rage, and rage into fury. I fed it to the dark side. I did not fight it, I became it. The force swelled around me, coiling like a storm, pulsing through the runes, whispering through the flames. And the holocron answered. Its hum grew louder. Its whispers are clear. Good. 2 comments 0 vote. Legacy in motion. Demon Fort of Draceryos, Meditation Chamber, 187 AD. 85 AC. The air was still. The only sound, the fading crackle of the braziers that had long since burned low, their light casting shadows that danced across the runes etched in the stone. The warmth of the flames was distant now, a dull echo against the cold, sweat-slicked skin on my back. I sat alone, the stone beneath me rough and solid, grounding me after what felt like hours of drifting. In that quiet, the silence was deafening. My thoughts, however, were louder than any roar. What could I become? The question did not frighten me. It fascinated me. Enthralled me. With the dark side of the Force, and the knowledge hidden within the holocron, there was almost no boundary I could not break. Sith rituals offered me paths ancient and forbidden. Valyrian sorcery, more intuitive, more wild, was compatible with them in strange, wondrous ways. Both streams of magic flowed into one source, the Force beneath it all. Could I bind oaths in blood and fire? Craft armors that defied dragonflame and age? Enchant weapons with death and madness? Could I shape flesh and spirit alike, create relics tied to soul and memory? Could I twist the ley energies beneath Valyria, and channel them into power? Nothing seemed impossible anymore. Only delayed. Only waiting. The holocron pulsed again. It welcomed me, not as a student, but as something else. Not an heir. Not a Sith. Something new. The interface shifted. A layer that had been dormant, now glowed with living crimson light. I touched it, and the surge struck me like a thunderclap. A flood of movement. Formulas. Names. Doctrines. Stances. Footwork. Each one defined in agonizing detail. 7 forms, and one more. Shicho. Makashi. Sorazu. Ataru. Sheen. Gemso. Neiman. Vapad. Jarkai. Not just concepts, but sensations. Muscles contracted. Breath staggered. My mind was splitting, reforming, adapting. These were not teachings, they were installations. And they were not meant for lightsabers. They had been converted. Steel, weight, balance, armor. The stances were adjusted to fit a warrior in mail, a duelist with cloak and blade, not a Jedi in robes. It was made for this world. It was made for me. I would need to rename them. The forms, as they stood, bore names of a world long gone, unknown to the people of Planetos. But here, among the Valyrians and Dragonlords, among warriors raised with steel and fire, they needed to be reborn with names of power and legacy. In time, I would assign them new titles, ones worthy of their strength. And I would teach them, carefully and with purpose, to my dragon army. Specifically, the Dragon Guard, the heavily armored elite sworn to House Draerios, our vassals, and none more loyally than to me. They were warriors of discipline and blood, and in their hands, these forms would become not just techniques, but instruments of domination. When I could move again, my feet guided me without thought. Through the lower halls. Past the locked doors and ruined paths. Into the training hall, stone-floored, ringed with weapons, silent save for my ragged breath. I took a practice blade. Long, narrow, balanced like a rapier. I raised it. Form I. Broad strokes. Horizontal and vertical cuts. No elegance. Just foundation. Form 2. My body shifted. I stepped lighter. Movements narrowed, targeted. Precision. This felt familiar. Natural. Form 3. Defensive stances. Rotating blocks. Designed for distant projectiles, yet I could feel its value. It focused on maintaining composure, conserving energy, and outlasting an opponent's assault. In this world, it could serve as the foundation for disciplined footwork and patient, unbreaking defense. Form IV. My body leapt, spun, stretched. Aggression. Quick kills. My muscles strained, but they held. Form V. Blades crashed against imaginary foes. Forward drive. Counters with force and power. I adjusted grip. Shifted stance. Form V. calm, mixed. Everything I had learned balanced into movement. Then, Form 7. Vaipad. Or rather, what had once been known as Juyo and Vaipad. Here, within the holocron, it had been refined, merged into something perfected. It was not just Vaipad, nor merely Juyo. It was both, balanced and fused. Fury guided by control, aggression without chaos. It felt right. As if this was the version meant to exist all along, prepared not for a galaxy of stars, but for this world of fire and blade. It was lightning in my veins. My footwork changed. My balance shifted. The blade moved as if drawn by instinct. Every strike landed with the crash of thunder, sudden and unrelenting. The unpredictability of each blow mirrored the erratic nature of lightning itself. Fluid, like a river during flood. I moved without hesitation, without fear, without pause, but fueled by the dark side, by its nature. Each motion enhanced when drawn upon rage and fury, its rhythm aligned with my anger, its power feeding from my will. Here, I was stronger. Here, I was sharper. The force around me did not resist. No, it rushed in, wrapped around me, merged with me. And then, stillness. I stood there, chest rising and falling. My breath deep. My grip light. The sword lowered. My eyes caught the blade. Reflected in the dull steel were not violet eyes. They were fire. Orange, red, ringed with bright intensity. Like embers in a storm. I did not feel corruption. No whispers. No madness. But I felt it. A resistance. The world itself, trying to deny what I had become. As if it knew, and feared, that I was not of it. And it was right. My soul was not born here. I remembered that now, like a flicker at the edge of my mind. A world of cities without kings. Of stars without dragons. A world of stories. And I had read those stories. I had loved those stories. But now, I was in one. And it would bow to me. This body, born of Valyria, blood of Aurion, blood of Draceryos, strength of the great dragons. This mind, shaped by two realities, trained in one and awakened in another. This soul, forged in a world where power existed only in stories, now breathed into a world where those stories became truth. I was not just different. I was inevitable. I closed my eyes. I breathed slow. The fire dimmed. When I opened them, violet eyes stared back. But I wanted to be sure. I summoned the anger. My pain. My hate. The dark side rose. My expression did not change. My eyes flared once more. Fire returned. Vaipad, I thought. And smiled. Above me, faint and distant, Azantius roared. A long, low sound. He knew. My muscles ached. My blood still hummed. The force had changed me. And it was not done yet. Not nearly. I slowly placed the training blade back in its resting place, its dull edge catching the light from the distant torches. My legs felt heavy, grounded by exhaustion and something else, something deeper. As if the very stone of this ancient fortress was weighing me down, testing me, resisting the change. I looked once more at my reflection, this time in the polished obsidian wall near the armory. Violet eyes now, calm and quiet. But behind them, power still burned, waiting. Tomorrow, I would begin again. First, I would study, experiment, analyze. I would dive deeper into the layers of knowledge hidden in the holocron, draw up plans, draft blueprints, and build the foundation of something far greater. One does not rush such things. Not when the work is meant to last. One comments 0 vote. Plans within flame. There was a mistake in the first chapter. Balthagar Draceryos is the great-great-grandfather of Balthagar, not his great-grandfather. It has been fixed. To avoid this issue, I will add an auxiliary chapter with main line of House Draerios. Fort Draceryos, Solar, 187 AD. 85 AC. A week had passed. A week of study, of deep thought, of careful planning. I sat in my solar, surrounded by scattered parchments, scrolls, and books. The air smelled of ink, old paper, and faint smoke from the hearth. The light of the setting sun filtered through the high windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. My desk was cluttered, a controlled chaos of notes, diagrams, sketches of runes and weapons, fragments of dragonbone and polished shards of obsidian. The knowledge I had gathered from the holocron was unlike anything in this world. Sith rituals and sorcery, Valyrian alchemy and magic, the theories of rune smithing and forging, all of it layered together in ways I had only begun to understand. The tomes in the library spoke of ancient rites, blood magic, and the dark arts of old Valyria. I had spent hours comparing them, searching for connections, for hidden truths. I meditated often, drawing strength from the force, from the pain that still burned in my chest. My father. My mother. My brother. I felt the pain, the anger, the fury that swelled with each memory, because they were my memories, and yet not. I was Balthagar Draceryos, heir to a legacy of fire and blood, but I was also something more. I was not born of this world, yet I had been reborn into it. A soul from another place, another life, woven into the body of a prince. Their grief was mine now. Their faces, their voices, their love, all etched into my mind. I felt it, all of it, as if it were my own. My old self and the new were no longer separate. They had fused, seamless, a single flame. This was who I was now, Balthagar Draceryos. They would not have died in vain. I would ensure that House Draerios, that Valyria itself, would rise again, greater, stronger, eternal. My ancestors, House Draerios and the rest of the great Dragonlord families, had merged their blood with that of the great dragons 5,000 years ago, becoming more than men. Their strength, their power, their connection to magic had been unmatched. But I could go further. I had the preserved heart of Valyrian, the great dragon, as large as I was tall. I had the dust of his bones, the blood drawn from his veins. I had the knowledge of both Sith and Valyrian sorcery. If I succeeded, what would I become? Stronger, taller, sharper of mind. My magic would burn brighter, my will stronger. But it would not stop there. I looked at Stormbringer, the ancestral greatsword of my house, resting on its stand. It was a large blade, not quite as massive as most Valyrian steel great swords, yet still a magnificent greatsword forged for war. The metal shimmered faintly in the firelight, dark and smooth, forged not with the blood of a lesser dragon, but in the blood and magic of an ancient great dragon, long dead. Forged by the founder of our line, its power unmatched, its legacy eternal. That was the difference. That was the strength. I would reforge it, remake it into something greater than any Valyrian steel or ancient Sith weapon. A sword bound to my bloodline, answering only to a Draceryos. The same would be done for my armor and the blood ring. The rings, carved from dragonbone and Valyrian steel, were imbued with magic and runes to heighten a dragonlord's senses, warn of poison, of danger, and much more. They would all be reforged, perfected. And then, there was Mardavia. I leaned back in my chair, my gaze drifting to the open window, where the distant mountains rose dark against the twilight sky. Mardavia. The city of my ancestors' dreams, nearly complete. Built atop one of the 14 flames, in the heart of the lands of the long summer. A place once fertile, green, and lush, now scorched by the doom. For centuries, Impaler, Vaemor, and those who came after had worked to cleanse the land. The mage orders, the alchemists, the dragon guard, they had all labored to restore what was lost. The stone men were gone, the curses lifted. The sea of sighs no longer ran red, but shimmered teal under the sun, its waters filled with fish, its shores lined with growing farms and cattle. Mardavia itself was a marvel, a large stronghold, castle, fortress, you may call it all those and more, situated on the lone mountain, the volcano. Immense, enormous, magnificent, and glorious. Yet not done, not finished, but soon. The city surrounds the mountain, its foundation built from dragonstone. Runes, laid by Impaler and perfected by Vaemor, chained the volcano, keeping it asleep, yet alive, its magic flowing through the city, feeding the dragon nests and hatcheries, strengthening the wards. The walls of the city were etched with those same runes, protecting against scrying, prying, and assault. At the heart of the city lay the hidden chamber, where the lines of power met. Guarded by 3 wisps and a master of the Order of Shadows, 2 masters of the Order of the Blood Dragon, 2 from the Order of the Fire Dragon, and the many dragon guards. Always watching. Always ready. The northern district was for the nobles, a place of quiet power. Lands were granted to the vassals of House Draerios, large estates surrounded by gardens and parks, and even larger holdings set aside for the 2 dragonlord families under Draceryos rule, enough space for dragon nest for 2 to 3 dragons with a dragon hatchery included. 7 in total, 2 for the dragonlords, 5 for the noble families. It was not yet crowded, but outlined for the future, for those who would earn their place. Space was left for new families, for those who would prove themselves worthy of nobility, a vision of growth yet to come. The Eastern District was the heart of learning and devotion, where the Cathedral of the 14 Flames stood tall and proud, the mage citadels rising like towers of wisdom. The Citadel of the Order of the Blood Dragon, the Citadel of the Order of the Fire Dragon, and the reserved spaces for future orders yet unnamed. There were outlines for future guilds as well, spaces left open, not yet built upon, but marked in the plans with precision, for when the time was right. Here, worship and knowledge, faith and sorcery, all converged. The southern district, where trade and life thrived, was the commerce district. Markets lined the streets, vendors and merchants selling goods both rare and common. Taverns, inns, cookshops, butcher stalls, all found their place here. The district pulsed with the daily life of the city, the hum of commerce and the exchange of goods and coin. The western district was the heart of the army and the general populace. It was also the largest district compared to the rest. The garrisons, the training grounds, the command halls. Here the dragon guard drilled, the dragoons prepared their mounts, the dragon scouts sharpened their blades, and the dragon hunters practiced their aim. The residence of the general population was also here, even though there are homes given and built in the southern and eastern district. Here is where all the general populace gathered and resided. The command center of the army stood tall here, where the marshal would oversee all, his solar a place of strategy and leadership. Here, the strength of House Draerios gathered, ready for any threat. The Draceryos Journals. 14 books, bound in the skin of a dragon, created through blood magic by Aurion himself, with the gift of the dragon skin, from the dragon that has perished from House Aurion, not reluctantly given, but offered in hopes of forging a strong and prosperous relationship as vassals. The first journal, the largest and most important, filled with all the knowledge Aurion had gathered, the secrets of Valyria, of the great dragonlords, of magic, of theory, of war. A guiding hand for future generations, a recount of history. The second, his own thoughts, his life, his victories, his mistakes. Each head of House Draerios wrote their chapter in the journal of their generation. My father's journal lay there, its pages closed. A slip of paper lay on top of the next journal, with my brother's name, Valur, written first, then mine, and my two younger brothers, Balon and Eginar. I thought of the day I would write in it. A knock at the door broke my thoughts. The steward entered, and bowed, then stood Strya GT and spoke. My prince, they have arrived. I stood. Usually I would turn towards the door, welcoming them, but this time I turned towards the windows, looking at the people going about their day. Even though I am not one for theatrics, I need to send a clear message to all, of the powers I possess. One does not hide their strength, but also does not reveal all their cards. My robe straightened with a pull of my hand. My gaze sharpened. It was time. The heads of the noble houses filed into the solar. 7 in total. 6 men, ageless in their high Valyrian beauty, silver and gold hair shining under the candlelight, their pale or dark violet eyes glinting with quiet power. The head of House Jaehaerys, a woman, wore her long hair loose, her eyes, pale violet, watched me with a steady, calculating gaze. She was also the Grand Master of the Order of the Fire Dragon, and the deep red robes she wore bore intricate flame patterns edged in gold. At her side stood the Grand Master of the Order of the Blood Dragon, a tall, severe man with short-cropped hair the color of starlight, his dark violet eyes sharp as a blade, his crimson robes immaculate. Then came the Dark Mistress. She moved like a shadow, her dark veil hiding her face, her robes intricate yet understated, the aura around her cold, unyielding. Her form was slender, her posture straight, her presence commanding. No one in the room spoke her true name, for none but I knew it. She was the Grand Mistress of the Order of Shadows, the second founder of the Order, the one Vaemor had called upon and bound by blood oath to House Draerios. Lastly, my sister, Balthagar Draceryos. Her platinum hair gleamed in the light, her pale violet eyes fierce, her face sharp and elegant. She sat at my right, her presence both comforting and commanding. She was my sister, my advisor, and the wife of the heir to House Aurion, who held the demon fort of the Black Cliffs, the fortress that guarded the only land path from Slavers' Bay to the free cities. A fortress built into the cliffs, unassailable from the west, secured by gates forged by Draceryos and Embarion. They were all here. Waiting. I turned, my eyes ablaze with fiery red. A crimson hue, with golden fury. Radiating the dark side. My arms crossed, my eyes wandered to each one of theirs, one by one. Let us begin. I state. 1 comments 0 vote. Embers of Legacy. I will add an auxiliary chapter for the noble vassal families of Draceryos. From now on, I will also always mention when I add an auxiliary chapter, and try to remember to mention if I have modified any of the existing ones. I would suggest, every chapter to just recheck on them, in case I have forgotten to mention that I have changed anything. Fort Draceryos, Solar, 187 AD. 85 AC. The air in the solar seemed to tighten the moment I spoke, my voice a calm, measured command. Silence rippled across the chamber, the kind that settled like a shroud, heavy and expectant. My eyes, still burning faintly with the afterglow of fire and fury, swept across the gathered lords and mages. Valis Valyrios, my uncle, the head of House Valyrios, leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping against the table's edge. His lips curled into a slow, predatory grin, the glint in his dark violet eyes sharp as the swords our ancestors once forged. There was no smile of joy, no warmth, only satisfaction, cold and fierce. The blood price for my mother's death had been paid, and his gaze made it clear he was pleased. You have avenged your mother, my prince, Valis said, his voice deep and steady, laced with approval yet edged with something harder. Blood for blood, as it should be. But tell me, what madness drives a man to walk alone into the house of the undying? His words drew a subtle nod from my sister, Valora, seated at my right. Her gaze, fierce and focused, watched me as a hawk studies its prey. She said nothing at first, but her eyes spoke volumes, concern, tempered with admiration, a flicker of anger restrained by duty. It was reckless, Valis continued, voice low, deliberate. Even for a Draceryos. Reckless, yes, Valora added softly, her voice quieter, but no less firm. Yet here you stand. I stand, I replied, my voice steady, a cold edge beneath the words. And they do not. A hush fell over the chamber, broken only by the faint crackle of the hearth and the distant sound of the sea wind against the stone walls. The mages shifted in their seats, glancing at one another, uneasy yet intrigued. They had felt it, the shift in me, the deepening of power, the dark current that now pulsed beneath my skin. The dark mistress, seated quietly, her form draped in shadow, turned her head slightly. Though her veil obscured her face, I could feel her gaze, sharp and unyielding. When she spoke, her voice was low, as if woven from smoke and midnight, yet clear and commanding. The power you radiate, it is not as it was. It has grown, not merely in volume, but in intent. There is something darker, deeper. Chained, yes, but chained not to weaken, chained to direct. To dominate. Her words cut through the room like a blade. The Grand Master of the Blood Dragon, seated near her, inclined his head slightly, his dark violet eyes narrowing. Even the Grand Mistress of the Fire Dragon, head of House Jaehaerys, her deep red robes catching the flicker of the firelight, nodded once, slowly, as if acknowledging a truth reluctantly admitted. I leaned forward, resting my hands on the table's polished surface. The cold wood beneath my palms seemed to pulse with a faint, silent rhythm, as if echoing the storm within me. I have been reforged, I said quietly, yet my voice carried, steady and sure. I have studied, I have bled, I have seen the threads that bind this world. And I will weave them into something new. My eyes, now faded to a deep, luminous violet, the signature of my bloodline, swept across them all. I will not speak of details, I continued, my tone calm, commanding, for plans unspoken or plans protected. But know this, what I build will not be a monument to the past, nor a mere echo of our ancestors' glory. It will be something greater. A foundation of flame, steel, and will. Mary's Costagar, head of House Costagar, a man with the sea etched into his skin, his hair silver like sea foam, and a thin scar running down his cheek, spoke with a low, deep voice. A fine vision, my prince. The waves are ready for conquest, should you command it. Valis' dark eyes glinted. A question worthy of our blood. Regin Tyveros, head of House Tyveros, a broad-shouldered man with close-cropped platinum hair and a scar across his brow, nodded. If the sea is ours, the land must follow. The cavalry stands ready, my prince. Gulayan Gelionar, marshal of the army and head of House Gelionar, with silver-streaked hair bound in a tight knot, his face lined but strong, spoke in a low, firm tone. And the army waits for your command. We are sharpened steel, my prince, ready to strike. Laenar Embarian, the head of House Embarian, his hair a lustrous pale gold, his hands marked with the soot and calluses of the forge, gave a measured nod. The forges burn, my prince. The steel sings. Whatever you envision, it can be forged. I let the silence settle, each voice echoing in my mind. They were not just titles or banners, they were the bones of a future yet to be built. My gaze lingered on the map before us, the world spread across the table in exquisite detail. The stepstones, a tangle of blood and stone. The pirate lords of the Basilisk Isles, their ambition unchecked. The free cities, fractured yet watching, always watching. The ruins of Velos on the Isle of Cedars, a whisper of what once was. I traced the etched lines of the Valyrian Peninsula, the shattered lands still scarred by the doom. My mind wandered, Oros, that ruined jewel, the city that once stood second only to Valyria itself. A port waiting to be reborn, a naval stronghold to anchor our dominion. The sea of sighs, now cleansed, the waters clear as glass. The mountain upon which Mardavia rose, its runes glowing faintly beneath the surface, feeding the nests, strengthening the wards. I looked up, my voice cutting through the quiet like a blade drawn from its sheath. This is not ambition for the sake of ambition, I said. This is survival. This is reclamation. We will not sit behind these walls while the world forgets who we are. We will not let the memory of Valyria rot in the dust. We will rise, and we will take what is owed. Baelora's voice, steady and sharp, spoke into the quiet. The free cities watch. They remember the Dragonguard's stand, the unsullied slaughtered. They remember the price of resistance. But they also wait. They wait to see if we falter. Mary's Costagar's voice rumbled like the sea itself. Then let them wait in fear, my prince. Our ships are ready, our sailors hungry. The seas are ours. Reman Tyveros spoke next, his voice measured, but edged. And the plains will burn beneath our hooves. The cavalry waits for the order. Laner Embarion's gaze met mine, calm and steady. The forges await your vision. Tell us what you need, my prince, and we will make it. Gulayan Gelionar's voice rumbled low, his calloused hands folding on the table. The army has been tempered, my prince. The drills continue. The Dragonguard sharpens its blades. The fires of war await only your command. I looked at them all, lords, warriors, mages, each a pillar, each a blade. My hands rested on the map once more, my fingertips brushing over Oros, over Velos, over the unbroken lines of roads and rivers that mark the future. I will give you the details soon, I said. For now, know this, we are not finished. Mardavia will not stand alone. Oros will rise as our gate to the west and east, a port and a fortress. The free cities will not move unchecked. Velos will be rebuilt, a watchtower on the sea. The Basilisk Isles, Skull Island, Gogosos, they will be watched, and if needed, cleansed. The Sea of Sighs will become a cradle for our fleets. My voice dropped, quiet, steady. No one will raise a hand against House Draerios again, nor against our vassals, nor the legacy we build. Silence reigned once more, but it was not empty. It was full, heavy with the weight of what was to come. I felt it then, deep within me, a cold flame, a hunger sharpened by loss, a will forged in fire and fury. My ancestors had been great, but I would surpass them. I was Balthagar Draceryos. And the world would know it. 7 comments 0 vote. Weaving the Future. Demon Fort of Draceryos, Solar, 187 AD. 85 AC. The air in the Solar felt thick, heavy with anticipation, as if the very stones of the fortress leaned in to listen. My gaze, steady and unblinking, swept across the assembled lords and mages, each seated in their place, each bearing the marks of Valyrian nobility, silver or pale gold hair, violet eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. The carved map of Essos lay before us, an ancient marvel of dragonbone, obsidian, and dark wood, its surface smooth and gleaming, the details etched by hands long dead. My fingers rested lightly on the map's surface. The contours of rivers, the jagged lines of mountains, the etched outlines of cities and coasts, all whispered to me. The world was vast, but it was ours to claim. Baelies Baleres leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowed in appraisal. A slow, feral grin spread across his face, as sharp and cold as a sword's edge. His gaze lingered on me, silent approval tempered with a note of warning. You speak of foundations, my prince, he said, voice low and deliberate. But what of the West? What of the Iron Throne and its dragons? They will not sit idle if we move against the stepstones. I met his gaze, my eyes steady, their hue a burning violet rimmed with faint gold. We are not blind, uncle. The Westerosi, especially the Dornish and the 7 kingdoms under the Targaryens, will see our moves as a threat. The stepstones hold no claim for anyone, nor for us, yet. But the seas must be cleared. The corsairs, the pirates, they choke the trade routes. Marys, I turned my gaze to the head of House Costagar, his face weathered by salt and sea, his hair a silver mane, a thin scar running across his cheek. Speak of what you have seen, Lord Costagar. Marys inclined his head. His voice was a steady rumble, like waves breaking on stone. The largest tribe of the Nathi came to me, my prince. Their leader, he is no simple island chieftain. His mind is sharp, his vision clear. He spoke of uniting the Nathi tribes under one banner, of seeking protection under our shadow. Word of Draceryos' power reached them long before we sailed their shores. He wishes to rebuild the ancient Valyrian fort, to make Nath a center of trade, a jewel in the summer sea. They are tired of suffering, tired of the corsairs and slavers. He offers his loyalty, in exchange for a future. I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of that truth. Noth, so long isolated, its people gentle yet enduring, had suffered for centuries. The chance to reshape it, to restore the ruined Valyrian fort, its dragonstone foundations still standing proud, was an opportunity. We will rebuild it, I said, voice firm. The Nathi leader understands his place in the world. We will offer protection, forge trade routes, and make Nath a haven. But we must move carefully. The Westerosi watch, and I will not risk a needless war, but I will also not cower from it. We are strong, but even we must not tempt a storm without reason. The time for the stepstones will come, but only with careful justification. I will not risk the lives of my people, nor the need for desperate rituals, nor the price of blood to force the hands of fate. And we will not awaken the dragons of House Matarion, not until Tyrosh burns, as they have sworn so. Riemann Tyveros, his shoulders broad beneath a cloak of dark leather, nodded sharply. The cavalry is restless, my prince. The roads are cleared, the men are drilled. We await your command. Galion Gelionar, marshal of the army, his face carved with age and experience, spoke with quiet gravity. And the foot stands ready, my prince. The dragon guards, the dragoons, the dragon scouts, the dragon hunters. We will hold the roads. Laenor Embarian, his hands calloused from the forge, his pale gold hair catching the firelight, spoke with measured confidence. Our forges burn night and day, my prince. We have begun crafting the steel for Mardavia's walls and gates, for Oros, for the future. We have refined techniques, stronger alloys, sharper edges. With your blessing, we will imbue the steel with runes, with the magic of the blood dragon. I nodded, the fire in my chest rising, slow and steady. You have my blessing, Laenor. Let the walls of Mardavia stand as unyielding as the blood of Draceryos. The Grand Master of the Blood Dragon Order, his face weathered and marked by ritual scars, leaned forward slightly. His voice was steady, his eyes dark and glinting. The runes are stable, my prince. The wards hold. The hatcheries thrive. The volcano remains chained, as it was by Maelor and Vaemor. We maintain the vigil. The Grand Mistress of the Fire Dragon, robed in dark orange and goldish hues, the embodiment of flame given form, inclined her head, her gaze calm yet intense. The flows remain steady, the channels feed the city. We refine the techniques, test the limits. It holds, my prince, but we must remain vigilant. I met their gazes, feeling the weight of their dedication. My family's legacy was not mine alone. It was theirs as well, a living thing, a tapestry woven by blood and flame. We will move forward carefully, I said, my voice low, steady, the fire beneath tempered yet smoldering. Noth will be a pearl in the summer sea. The basilisk isles, they will be cleansed. Gogosos will be scoured, its ruins stripped of rot, its bones reforged into strength. And Oros. Oros will rise again. A port city, a bastion, a shield against the west and the east. The roadways must be secured, the sea lanes patrolled. We will rebuild the legacy of Valyria, piece by piece, not as a reflection of the past, but as a foundation for the future. The chamber was silent once more, but the tension had shifted, no longer heavy with doubt, but charged with purpose. My eyes swept across them all, lords and mages, warriors and blood. This was not the end. It was the beginning. Let none raise a hand against House Draerios, nor our vassals, nor the legacy we forge. We are the fire that will not be quenched. And in the quiet, I felt it again, that hum, that pulse, that steady, unyielding rhythm beneath my skin. The weight of my ancestors. The dreams of the future. The power of flame, steel, and will. This was the world we would shape. This was the legacy we would build. And it had only just begun. 3 comments 0 vote. Threads of Legacy and Flame. A.N. It seems most of you haven't read the auxiliary chapter labeled, Important. Like I asked, simply, please read it. To avoid the stupid and repetitive question that I know will be asked. So, you are either stupid or you haven't read the auxiliary chapter, which is it? I do not know. Do not take offense for your own folly. So, go and read it, and then read it again. And in there I have answered your future questions like Sosuke Aizen. I also at least acknowledge the mistake of forgetting to add in the synopsis the start period of the story, so there, what? You expect a sorry. Also, do try to not comment dumb shit. The story has already been stated to be ASOIAF. Why are you surprised when it's different to what you expect? That is the beauty in fanfictions. Why should I write exactly as the story has been written, when I have the freedom to alter it? So read the whole fucking chapter, before commenting. You guys and gals, comment on the first part of the chapter, only to find out that most likely, your question has been answered somewhere later in the chapter. If you are mad at how I responded to this, well, too bad for you, you can leave. If not, it seems you got some grit, so stay and enjoy this story, and good luck. Demon Fort of Draceryos, Solar, 187 AD. 85 AC. The Solar grew quiet as the last of the maps and reports were gathered, the weight of decisions settling over the gathered lords, masters, and family heads. The flickering light from the hearth cast shifting shadows across the walls, illuminating the carved table of dragonbone, ancient wood, and obsidian that held the future of Valyria itself. I stood at its head, arms crossed, my gaze sweeping across the faces of those assembled. My prince, Valis Baleres began, his voice measured yet laced with the firmness of duty. The hour draws near when we must look beyond battles and borders. The strength of House Draerios must not only be measured in swords and sorcery, but in bloodlines and legacy. It is time, you must wed. A quiet murmur passed through the chamber, not of surprise, but of expectation. This was a conversation long delayed, yet inevitable. The Grand Master of the Order of the Blood Dragon, Marin Aerolis, nodded once, his dark violet eyes gleaming beneath the torchlight. The people will look to you, my prince. To unite Valyria's bloodlines once more. To lead not only by power, but by example. Valora shifted slightly in her seat, her silver gold hair catching the light, her expression a blend of sharp intellect and quiet amusement. It is true, brother, she said softly. The future of Valyria rests on more than flame and steel. It rests on family. I inclined my head, my voice steady, my words deliberate. And I will do my duty. But not as a prince seeking favor. When I wed, it will not be as a man seeking a lady, but as an emperor claiming his empress. The bloodline of Draceryos does not kneel to tradition, we shape it. The words hung in the air, and I could see the weight of them settle on each face. They understood, this was not arrogance, but vision. A promise that when the time came, I would take my place as Emperor of Valyria, and my wives, yes, wives, would be empresses, chosen not merely for beauty or blood, but for strength, loyalty, and the future they could forge. I turned my gaze to Lord Matarion and Lord Gelionar, my voice calm, my expression composed. How fare your daughters? Lord Matarion, a weathered man with a lined face and a mane of pale silver hair, sat straighter, his eyes narrowing slightly. Serena is well, my prince. Strong of will, clever of mind, and trained in the ways of diplomacy. She has not forgotten the promise of House Matarion, nor the blood oath we swore, to ride dragons once more, when Tirosh burns. Lord Gelionar, a man of quiet authority with hair streaked in silver and steel, offered a slight nod. Rhaenessa thrives, my prince. Her training continues under the tutelage of my arms masters. Her blade is sharp, her mind sharper still. She is eager to serve, as any of Gelionar blood would be. A flicker of amusement crossed Valora's face, though she spoke no words. The lords and ladies seemed satisfied, pleased that I acknowledged their daughters, that I showed no hesitation or shyness in this matter of duty. It was expected, and it was necessary. I leaned back, my hands resting on the carved table, my gaze sweeping once more across the faces of my vassals. Know this, my intentions remain clear. I will take wives, I will strengthen our house, but I will not wed until the crown of Valyria rests upon my brow. When that day comes, they will not marry a prince, they will wed an emperor. A hum of approval rippled through the room, quiet yet potent. The lords nodded, some with satisfaction, others with quiet calculation. Valis' grin was sharp, predatory, his eyes gleaming like dark amethyst beneath the torchlight. It was then that I turned to Lord Gelionar once more, my voice steady, my tone lighter, though no less commanding. And my brother, Balon, how fares he? Lord Gelionar's expression softened, the faintest hint of pride warming his features. Your brother is a true warrior in the making, my prince. 15 days old, yet he rides Anaxigan as though born in the saddle. His martial skills are exceptional, though there is still much to learn. His mind is sharp, his heart fierce. He has accompanied the dragon guards, the dragon hunters, the dragon scouts, he has learned the ways of war as all of Gelionar's wards do. He is Draceryos, through and through. A faint smile tugged at the corner of my mouth, and I felt the weight of pride settle in my chest, heavy yet satisfying. Balon, my brother, my blood, a rider of a great dragon, destined for greatness. Lord Costagar, a tall, lean man with hair the color of pale sea foam and skin tanned by sun and salt, spoke next, his voice deep and steady. And Eginar, my prince, your brother grows well. 14 days old, strong in arms, sharp in thought. His study of naval warfare, of battle at sea, is impressive. He commands the respect of my captains and has taken to the sea as if born of it. You should be proud, my prince. Both your brothers honor your name. I nodded, my gaze distant for a moment as I thought of them, Vaelon, bonded to Anaxigon, a great dragon, a living flame of the sky. Eginar, soon to command ships and fleets, the sea his domain, and hopefully claim his own dragon. My brothers, my blood, my future. But the moment passed, and the conversation turned once more, as it must. Stating what my intentions are to do soon, the solar shifts, as those who are present are bewildered and stunned at what I have stated. My prince, Vaelys began, his tone sharp, a hint of disapproval lacing his words. You speak of reforging Stormbringer, your family's ancestral blade, the sword of House Draerios itself. Are you mad? The words hung heavy, a question asked not in jest, but in concern, in challenge. Vaelora leaned forward, her voice quiet yet firm. Stormbringer is more than steel. Brother, it is our legacy, the symbol of our blood. To reforge it, that is no small thing. I met their gazes, unflinching, my voice calm yet unyielding. I do not speak of destroying Stormbringer. I speak of perfecting it. Of transforming it into something greater. The blade was forged in dragon's blood and magic, yes, but it can be made stronger, infused with the knowledge I now possess. I will not desecrate it. I will elevate it. A hush fell, the weight of my words sinking in. The Grand Mistress of the Order of the Fire Dragon, her robes of dark orange and gold catching the firelight, spoke at last, her voice a soft whisper of flame. This is no small undertaking, my prince, the forging of such a blade requires precision, and the magic that binds it, if unraveled, it could consume. Marin Aerolis, the Grand Master of the Blood Dragon, nodded slowly, his expression tight. Such a ritual, even your ancestors who merged dragon blood into their veins, they treaded carefully. My prince, power is a blade, it cuts both ways. The Dark Mistress, her voice a low whisper like the wind through a crypt, offered no counsel, but her silence was heavy, her presence like a shadow at the edge of the flame. I stood straighter, my eyes burning faintly once more, the faint glow of the dark side threading through my veins. I know the risks. I will not act blindly. The knowledge I have, the knowledge I will yet gather, it will guide me. This is not a whim, but a path. When the time comes, I will forge Stormbringer anew, the armor, the blood ring, and the crown, when I claim my title as emperor. The lords fell silent, each absorbing my words. There was reluctance, yes, but there was also a glimmer of something else, anticipation, perhaps. Curiosity. Even the Dark Mistress, hidden behind her veil, seemed to lean forward slightly, as if drawn by the promise of what was to come. The conversation shifts once more, towards what must be done by each lord and lady, the Grand Master and mistresses. Lord Gelionar spoke first, his voice steady. The roads will be patrolled, my prince. The demon forts stand, the soldiers prepared. The army will not fail you. Lord Tyveros added, his deep voice firm. The cavalry stands ready, my prince. Every horse, every blade, yours to command. Lord Embarion, his hands darkened by the forge, inclined his head. The forges will burn bright, my prince. Steel and fire, shaped by our hands, we will not falter. Lord Costagar, his sea-weather face grim, nodded once. The ships will be built, the navy strengthened. The sea is ours, it will serve you well. Lady Magiros spoke last, her voice smooth as silk, her eyes gleaming like embers. Our mages are ready, my prince. The Order of the Fire Dragon will answer your call, by flame, by blood, by oath. Marin Aerolis inclined his head, his expression cold and precise. The Blood Dragon Order will not fail you. The magic flows, and we stand ready. The Dark Mistress voice, a whisper of shadow, drifted across the room. The shadows are yours, my prince, the wisps, the shadows, and the few of the shadow masters, in the free cities, in the Slavers' Bay, even in Westeros, they are ready, waiting, to serve you, to serve Draceryos and Valyria. I nodded once, slowly. The weight of it settled on my shoulders, not as a burden, but as a mantle I was born to bear. The night grew deeper, the embers in the hearth burning low. One by one, the lords and ladies departed, their duty clear, their path set. And when the chamber was empty, I descended once more into the depths of the keep. The dungeon was cold, the air thick with the scent of ash and ancient magic. I sat cross-legged before a Valyrian glass candle, the flickering flame dancing within its obsidian core. The glow cast strange, shifting patterns across the stone walls, and I closed my eyes, breathing slow, controlled. I reached into the dark, the force, the sorcery, the memory of Valyria's fire. The ritual loomed before me: Sith sorcery, Valyrian alchemy, Sith rituals, Valyrian blood magic. It would be a union of power and pain, of knowledge and will. The ambient magic of the world was faint, a dying breath after the doom. The weirwood trees of Westeros after being cut by the Andal bastards has also effected the magic of the world, even long before the doom. The wall and the few of the weirwood trees, they held a lingering echo, but the dark presence that I sensed through the candle, it masked the magic of northern Westeros, as if to chain it, hide it away. I would break those chains. I would gather the fragments of power, piece them together, and forge myself anew. My will would burn brighter than the doom itself. And so, I sat, silent, in the heart of the darkness, the candle flickering before me, and I prepared. 2 comments 0 vote. The Gathering Storm. Dungeons, Demon Fort of Draceryos, 187 AD. 85 AC. The chamber beneath the Demon Fort of Draceryos pulsed with an ancient, subdued energy. The walls were carved from dragonstone, etched with Valyrian runes that glimmered faintly under the flickering light of oil lamps. The air was thick with the scent of ink, smoke, and old parchment, heavy with the weight of generations past. This was the family dungeon, a large and vast network of rooms, vaults, storerooms and much more. Here, in the chamber designed by Vaemor, a place designed for meditation and the forging of the mind, a chamber where knowledge, ritual, and legacy intertwined. I sat cross-legged in the center, a circle of carefully arranged materials before me. The dragonbone dust of a great dragon in a glass jar, fragments of obsidian, vials of preserved great dragon blood, a dish of thick, crimson weirwood paste prepared from the sap and seeds stored in the alchemical vaults. Around me, the Valyrian runes of protection and containment gleamed faintly, ensuring no magic seeped beyond their bounds. The holocron within me, the fragmented vessel of Sith knowledge, a memory of a galaxy far removed yet now its knowledge and powers bound to this world, bound to me, hummed in the depths of my mind. I had studied it for months, merging its dark wisdom with the ancient rites of Valyria. Sith sorcery, alchemy, rituals, all would be woven into this grand tapestry, but with materials of this world. No Sith metals, no Sith creatures. Only what Valyria offered: dragonbone, fire, blood, and will. But maybe, yes, one day and soon. Weapons rivaling both the Valyrian and Sith creations, creatures similar to the Sith spawn, their purpose to serve my will, the will of Valyria. Theories and plans sharpened in my thoughts, visions of what was to come. This ritual of transformation would be the first step, the foundation. My body, my mind, the magic within me, my very soul would be reforged. Sith runes, not yet carved or laid, would soon encircle me, etched into the ritual grounds above the lava ley lines beneath the hill, a place of power just beyond the demon fort. There, I would stand as Azantius bathed me in dragon flame, the might of the great dragon intertwining with my form. But for now, I prepared. Every piece aligned, every step measured. My breath slowed, steady as the beat of a war drum, my mind a storm held in check. The flame of the Valyrian glass candle flickered in the still air. Through its glow, I felt the threads of magic in the world, faint and fragile. The doom had stripped much of the world's power, and the blasted Andal's axe had felled the weirwood trees, even long before the doom, severing ancient roots of magic in Westeros. Only the remnants in the north, the wall, and the few surviving groves clung to what was left, though even there, a dark presence lingered, masking and chaining what remained. I would unshackle it, one day. For now, I gathered strength, meditated on the knowledge I had, and the knowledge I would yet claim. Soon, the ritual would begin. But there was much yet to do. A week later, Demon Fort of Kostagar, 187 AD. 85 AC. The docks of the Demon Fort of Kostagar bustled with controlled chaos. Crates of provisions were loaded, barrels rolled, weapons stacked neatly. The sound of hammering, shouting, and the creak of wood filled the air. At the heart of it all stood 6 figures: Lord Kostagar and his son Lycor, Lord Gelionar and his son Raynor, and the 2 young princes, Vaelon and Egenar Draceryos. The fleet was a force of might and precision. 5 man-o'-war vessels, bristling with scorpions and ballistas, their reinforced hulls dark and imposing. 20 galleons, sturdy and well-armed, their decks crowded with sailors and marines. The rest of the ships, frigates, schooners, and a handful of sleek longships, numbered in the dozens, bringing the total fleet to 100. The frigates, lean and swift, each bore 4 ballistas, 2 on either side, ready to deliver death from afar. Above them all, Anaxigan, Vaelin's great dragon, rested on a high bluff overlooking the port, his sapphire eyes half-lidded, his scales catching the sunlight like molten silver. His wings shifted occasionally, the faint rumble of his breath a constant reminder of the power that guarded the skies. Valen's gaze swept the docks, a flicker of concern in his violet eyes. Will my brother be here? He asked, turning toward Lord Costagar. The young prince's voice was calm, but the undertone of longing was clear. Lord Costagar's face, weathered by salt and storm, softened just slightly. Your brother, my prince, is fulfilling his duty. He prepares for something great. When the time comes, you will see. Eginar, standing tall beside his brother, listened in silence, his fists clenched lightly at his sides. He had not spoken of Balthagar in weeks, but his gaze, sharp, focused, betrayed the same worry, the same hunger for answers. Lord Gelionar, his silver-streaked hair tied back in a simple knot, placed a firm hand on Valen's shoulder. Your brother's path is one of burdens and fire, young prince. Trust in him. And trust in us, your kin, your allies. Valan nodded slowly, though the weight in his chest did not ease. Lycor Costagar, heir to House Costagar, his hair silver like sea foam and his eyes pale as the horizon, grinned slightly. It won't be long before we sail, young princes. Then you'll have your own glory to speak of. Rainer Gelionar, dark-eyed and steady, clapped Eginar on the shoulder. When you return, we'll train again. Blade and bow. Let us see if the sea has dulled your reflexes. A faint smile touched Eginar's lips at that, though his gaze soon returned to the sky, where Anaxigan stretched lazily, the wind catching his wings. The scene at the docks was one of calculated urgency. Over 24 high mages and countless mages, 5 masters from the Order of the Fire Dragon, and 5 masters from the Order of the Blood Dragon moved among the soldiers, offering blessings, checking wards, and ensuring every aspect of the fleet was prepared. In the shadows, unseen by most, 2 shadow masters and their cadre of wisps and shadows watched in silence, their presence a hidden blade. This was no mere expedition, it was a projection of Valyrian will. A fleet destined for Noth, to establish a permanent foothold, to cleanse its surroundings of pirates and slavers, to expand the reach of House Draerios across the summer sea. And as the sun dipped lower, the fleet stirred. The last of the cargo secured, the soldiers boarded, the banners of House Draerios and its vassals, Costagar and Gelionar, snapping in the sea breeze. Valan and Eginar stood at the rail of the flagship, Anaxigan circling above with a low, rumbling cry, a promise of flame and fury. Lord Costagar turned to Lord Gelionar, his voice a low rumble. The sea is ours, Gelionar. The slavers and pirates will bleed, the Nothi will yield. Our ships will carve the waves like blades. Lord Gelionar's gaze was steady, his voice calm. Aye, but remember, the sea is treacherous. And the Westerosi, especially the Iron Throne and the damned exiles, Targaryens, will not sit idly by if we move too boldly. We have strength, yes, but even strength must be tempered. Costagar's grin was sharp, predatory. Let them come. We will drown their banners beneath the waves. Valan, his gaze steady, asked softly, will we be ready, Lord Costagar? Lord Costagar's voice was firm, a promise forged in steel. We are ready, my prince. And when you return, you will see the world burn brighter in your brother's name. With that, the order was given, the fleet set sail, and the ships turned their prows toward the southern seas. Anaxigan roared, wings unfurling as he swept over the fleet in a wide arc, a herald of fire and might. And as the sun sank below the horizon, the ships vanished into the gathering dusk, their sails catching the wind like shadows on the sea. The future had begun. And the storm would follow. 0 comments 0 vote. The flames of rebirth. A.N. I will take a break for a couple of days. Since the first chapter released, I have been writing consistently. Chapter 9 and 10 are done, Chapter 11 is in progress. In 2 to 4 days I will upload Chapter 9. I am trying to always stay 2 to 3 chapters ahead from what's uploaded. One more thing, when next chapter is uploaded, I will upload the images for the dragons and the images of Balthagar. I will make also an auxiliary for the dragons' images and the characters' images. Valyrian Seas, Noth's coastline, 187 AD. 85 AC. After 6 days of steady winds and rolling waves, the Valyrian fleet arrived at the northern shores of Noth. The journey had been swift yet tense, a sense of purpose hanging over the men as the dark hulls of ships cut through the sapphire sea. 5 man-o'-wars, 20 galleons bristling with scorpions and ballistae, and a host of frigates, schooners, and sleek longships, 100 ships in all, bearing the banner of House Draerios, the crimson flame of Valyria. The fleet anchored in the calm waters of a crescent bay, sheltered by rocky outcrops and dense jungle. The sailors worked swiftly, offloading supplies and erecting a temporary dock along the shore. Trees were felled, clearing space for palisades and a command post. The clang of axes and the rhythm of hammers echoed across the beach, mingling with the cries of seabirds and the distant roar of the waves. Thousands of men labored, building the bones of what would soon become a Valyrian foothold, an outpost from which Draceryos might shape the destiny of Noth. At the heart of the effort stood the six figures, Lord Costagar and his son Lycor, Lord Gelionar and his son Raynor, and the two young princes, Balon and Eginar Draceryos. They watched as soldiers directed workers, as dragon guards patrolled the perimeter, their armor gleaming in the tropical sun. Anaxigan rested on a rise above the beach, wings half-folded, his sapphire eyes gleaming with lazy menace. Then came the messenger. A Nothi, tall and thin, dark-skinned with sharp features, approached cautiously under a white cloth of peace. The dragon guards watched him with suspicion as he bowed low before the Valyrian lords. I bring word from Kalemba, chief of the Azuka, he said in heavily accented Valyrian, his voice steady but cautious. He waits with his warriors beyond the hill. He seeks parley. Lord Costagar's lips curled into a thin line. Bring him, he ordered, and the messenger bowed again, retreating into the jungle. Within the hour, Kalemba appeared, flanked by a dozen Nothi warriors, their skin painted with earth tones, their hair adorned with feathers and shells. Kalemba himself was tall, broad-shouldered, with keen, intelligent eyes the color of hazel and the presence of a man who had long ruled his people. At his side walked Azuri, the aged shaman who had counseled Kalemba since his youth. Her eyes, dark and deep, watched the Valyrian lords with quiet calculation. Chairs and tables had been set between the growing palisades and the jungle's edge, the air thick with tension and the scent of sea salt and freshly cut wood. Water, dried fruits, and watered wine were laid out. The Nothi sat opposite the Valyrians, the sun beating down upon them, the roar of the sea ever present. Lord Costagar spoke first, his voice like gravel smoothed by time. Chief Kalemba, you know why we are here. We come not as raiders, but as builders. The House of Draceryos extends an offer, order for chaos, unity for division. Kalemba inclined his head slowly. I know the old stories. Of Valyria, of fire and blood. My people have suffered under slavers, pirates, and plague. If we must bow to a master, let it be one who builds, not one who devours. Lord Gelionar's voice was firm, measured. Then you understand. Aid us in unifying the tribes, rebuild the fort that once stood on these shores, and we will protect you. You will be part of something greater, a future shaped by Valyria's might. Kalemba's gaze sharpened. And in return, you will have peace, Gelionar replied. You will trade, you will prosper. Your children will not be taken by slavers. You will have our steel, our ships, and our dragons. But you will kneel, to House Draerios, to the empire to come. Azuri's voice, raspy with age, broke in. The world is vast. And the gods are many. We have heard of your prince Balthagar, of his predecessors, of the fire and fury he and they commanded. We wish, to stand beneath that flame, not be consumed by it. Kalemba nodded. We will join. The Azuka will be the first to bend the knee. And the other tribes, they will follow. Lord Costagar's eyes glinted. Then let it be done. The agreement was sealed with words and drink. Kalemba's warriors watched as the Valyrian banners snapped in the breeze, knowing that soon, their lands would change. The dragon guards stood tall, their presence an unspoken promise of might. The terms were clear. The Nothi would unify, rebuild the ancient Valyrian fort, and serve under the protection and authority of House Draerios. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the fleet prepared to sail once more. Balon stood at the rail, watching the shore recede. Men toiled, building the outpost, 2,500 dragon guards, 1,500 dragon scouts, 1,500 dragon hunters, 4 masters, and over 3 dozen mages remaining to secure the new hold. The Nothi worked alongside them, felling trees, shaping logs, and watching the skies where Anaxigan circled like a living god. 3 days into the voyage back home, the fleet sailed under steady winds, the Valyrian peninsula rising to the east, jagged and dark. The sea shimmered beneath a slate sky, the scent of salt thick in the air. Lycor Costagar, standing near his father, peered through a spyglass and frowned. Ships ahead, father. 40, perhaps 50. Ironborn colors. Costagar's jaw tightened. He took the spyglass, scanning the horizon. Black sails, cruel prows, ragged crews. Reavers and rapists, the Ironborn. His eyes narrowed. They sailed toward Valyria. Raynor Gelionar hissed, his voice low. They seek to plunder, bastards. Lord Costagar growled, turning to the masters of the Order of Fire Dragon. Scry them. Now. One of the fire masters, a pale Valyrian named Voron Males, closed his eyes, hands on a Valyrian glass candle. His breathing slowed, his lips moving in a silent chant. After a tense moment, his eyes snapped open, fury gleaming in their depths. They speak of Valyria, of looting the ruins, of seizing what they can before the flames return. They are stunned by our fleet. Afraid. Lord Gelionar's voice was like iron. Prepare the ships. Ready the scorpions. Arm the ballistae. Valen's hands tightened on the rail, his gaze flicking to Anaxigon. The great dragon rumbled above, wings slicing the sky. Let me burn them, Valon murmured, his voice a whisper of hunger. Lord Costagar's voice cut sharp. No, young prince. If anything happens to you, your brother will have our heads. Mount Anaxigon and wait for my signal. If they strike first, they will feel the wrath of House Draerios. Valon nodded, a flicker of fire in his eyes. The fleet shifted, the ships turning slowly, sails taut in the wind, weapons gleaming. The sea held its breath, waiting for war. Demon Fort of Draceryos, 187 AD. 85 AC. The hill rose like a black tooth from the land, a place of power. Lava flows simmer deep beneath its roots, the ley lines pulsing faintly. Atop the massive hill, a large circular platform of dragonstone, 15 meters wide, had been carved, etched with Sith runes, a nexus of ancient sorcery. Balthagar Draceryos stood at its center, barek-ested, wearing only an undergarment and a crimson robe etched with gold and black. His hair, silver black, fell loose over his shoulders. The air hummed with power, the sun rising behind the painted mountains in a slow, crimson bloom. The gathered hosts watched in silence. The Grand Master of the Blood Dragon, the Grand Mistress of the Fire Dragon, Lady Kayla Mageiros, and the Dark Mistress of Shadows. Lords Baleres, Matarion, Embarion, and Tyveros stood with their sons. Valora Draceryos and her husband watched from the edge. Dragon guards, dragoons, dragon scouts ringed the hill, their armor gleaming. Mages whispered prayers, shadows lingered in the periphery, unseen but present. Balthagar's gaze swept the hilltop, his eyes still amethyst, calm, focused. The main jar of the alchemical mixture sat before him, dragonbone dust, great dragon blood, weirwood paste, his own blood, rare herbs, silk grass, ruby ferns, jeweled moss, grunting shrub, leaves of the white tree of flames. 2 smaller jars held the separate bloods. He shed his robe, casting it aside. His skin gleamed in the dawn light, marked by faint scars and shadows of power. He dipped his hands into the paste, smearing it over his chest, arms, and legs, layer upon layer, until his body gleamed with the alchemical substance, a strange, pulsing sheen. The blood from the 2 smaller jars was poured onto the carvings, his blood, the great dragon's blood, flowing into the runes, igniting them in a soft, crimson glow. He knelt, hands resting on his knees, the main jar before him. His voice rose in High Valyrian, amplified by the Force, a call to the heavens. Azontius, the infernal, come to me. The ground trembled. Birds fled the trees in terror. From the distant forest came a roar, a deep, thunderous sound that shook the stones. The great dragon emerged, massive, red-black scales gleaming, his eyes twin stars of molten fury. Azontius, the infernal, the crimson comet. Their bond ignited, a spark flaring between their souls. Azontius' voice rumbled in Balthagar's mind. I am ready, my rider. Let us see what we may become. Azontius climbed the hill, wings folding tight, vast body coiling around the ritual ground, his presence a living storm. Balthagar stood, the jar in hand. His eyes darkened, the amethyst swallowed by flame, the dark side searing through him. He began to chant in the ancient Sith tongue, harsh, guttural, a sound that seemed to tear at the air. The clouds above darkened, thunder cracked, the wind howled. The Sith runes blazed crimson, the ground thrumming beneath their feet. His skin cracked, glowing lines spreading across his flesh, a lattice of molten light. The paste lifted from the jar, swirling around him in a vortex of alchemical power, threads of energy binding to his form. Azontius opened his maw, fire gathering in his throat, a low rumble rising. Balthagar's voice roared above the storm. Through strength I gain power. Through power I gain victory. Through victory my chains are broken. And then Azontius unleashed the flame, dark crimson, a torrent of heat and fury. It engulfed Balthagar, the runes flaring, the storm howling, the ritual beginning in truth. The world held its breath. 4 comments 0 vote. Fire on the horizon. A.N. Uploaded the auxiliary chapters as stated from previous chapter, including new ones. Near the demon fort of Draceryos, 187 AD. 85 AC. The charred remains of the circular dragonstone platform still smoldered, dark smoke curling into the air like tendrils of a lingering dream. Balthagar Draceryos stood at its center, transformed. Where once he had been tall and imposing, now he was something more, something other. His form radiated power, carved as though by the gods themselves, muscles taut, defined, glowing faintly with the afterglow of the ritual's fury. His height stretched to a commanding 190 centimeters, every fiber of his being alive with the hum of sorcery. His pale skin shimmered, kissed by the sun's light, and his hair flowed like liquid silver, longer, thicker, wild yet regal. But it was his eyes, those once violet eyes, that burned now, molten orbs of deep, fiery amber, laced with threads of crimson and gold. The eyes of the dark side, yet fierce with an inner light, a testament to both power and purpose. Sparks danced along his fingertips, flashes of lightning crackling in brief arcs across his palms. He felt everything, every beat of his heart, every surge of blood through his veins, every tremor of magic within his flesh and bone. With a slow breath, he lifted his hands, flexing his fingers. The sparks danced brighter, then faded. His gaze shifted to Azantius, perched on the high rocks nearby, massive and coiled, his great red-black wings half unfurled. Balthagar could feel it, sense it, the transformation within the great dragon as well. Azantius' scales gleamed like polished crimson steel, his body thicker, stronger, the glow of magic pulsing faintly beneath his hide. Their bond had deepened, a connection now seared into their souls. Azantius' voice thundered in Balthagar's mind, a low rumble of satisfaction and shared power. We are more, now. Bound deeper, flame and flesh as one. The sky trembles, and the earth will kneel. Balthagar's lips curled into a fierce, quiet grin. Indeed, the world shall tremble beneath us. Azantius launched into the sky, causing the ground to shake, his massive wings stirring the air into a maelstrom of wind and dust. He soared high, circling the hilltop, his roar shaking the stones below. Balthagar watched him ascend, then turned, walking toward the edge of the hill. He moved with a new weight, an effortless grace, a predator in full command of his domain. His robe lay where it had fallen, he lifted it without care, draping it loosely over his shoulders, not bothering to tie it closed. His bare chest, slick with sweat and marked by the faint, glowing traces of the ritual, remained exposed, a testament to the storm that had been unleashed. The gathering below stared in awed silence. The Grand Master of the Blood Dragon, the Grand Mistress of the Fire Dragon, and the Dark Mistress of Shadows stood at the fore, their faces a blend of reverence, curiosity, and quiet dread. Lords Baleres, Matarion, Embarion, and Tyveros, along with their sons, watched with wide eyes, their expressions tight with caution, wonder, and the weight of the unknown. It was Valora who found her voice first, stepping forward, her tone tight yet trembling. Brother, what happened? What took you so long? Balthagar tilted his head, confusion flickering across his face. What do you mean, so long? It was the Dark Mistress who answered, her voice a soft, dangerous whisper. It has been 3 days, my prince. 3 days, and none could approach the hill. A dome formed, of magic, of flame, of something more. We could only watch, powerless. The Grand Master of the Blood Dragon, Marin Aerolis, stepped closer, studying Balthagar with sharp, assessing eyes. You are changed, my prince. Beyond changed. You radiate power like a storm waiting to break. It humbles even the strongest of us. The Grand Mistress of the Fire Dragon, Lady Kayla Mageiros, nodded, her gaze both wary and intrigued. What have you done? Balthagar's gaze swept over them, his voice even, yet carrying a force that vibrated in their bones. I have reforged myself, into what must be done. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains will be broken. Before more could be said, Lord Tyveros, who had been standing nearby in tense silence, spoke with a hesitant edge. My prince, we received a message not long ago, from one of the mages on Noth, through a glass candle. The fleet, returning from the Noth expedition, has intercepted a force of Ironborn, 50 ships, it's said, off the western shores of the lands of the long summer. The battle is ongoing, or perhaps nearing its climax. A cold, focused fury settled over Balthagar's face. His hands clenched into fists, sparks dancing once more across his skin. His voice cut like a blade. Prepare the fleet. What ships remain, they sail now. I will ride. He turned to Lord Baleres, his uncle, and Baleres' son, Valen. Ready your dragons, Egovax and Amberian, at once. We fly. Balthagar's voice was a storm given form. Summon my armor, Stormbringer. I ride at once. Without waiting for a reply, he strode down the hill, his steps a thunderous cadence. Guards scrambled, mages and attendants racing to obey. The wind howled above as Azantius circled, a dark star in the sky, and Balthagar's gaze lifted to meet his. In the depths of his mind, he knew, Vaelon, Eginar, they will hold. Their blood is my blood. The Ironborn are fools if they believe they can break what is forged in fire and shadow. Yet they will learn. Valyrian fleet, western shores of the lands of the long summer. The sea churned, dark and furious. The Ironborn fleet, 50 strong, spread across the water like a swarm of black carrion birds. Their sails snapped in the wind, bearing the kraken of House Greyjoy, their decks crowded with reavers, shields, axes, and the stink of salt and slaughter. At the heart of their fleet stood Alton Greyjoy, the third-born son of Lord Varone Greyjoy, a monstrous brute of a man. His beard was a ragged tangle, charms of bone and driftwood woven into it. Salt crusted his leathers, and the tattoo of the drowned god coiled across his chest like a living thing. He stood at the prow of his warship, the Sea Drinker, bellowing oaths to the drowned god, his eyes wild with madness. The sea is ours. Take Valyria's bones and feed them to the waves. But the Valyrian fleet stood firm, 30 ships in tight formation, disciplined, ruthless, their ballistae ready, scorpions gleaming like fangs. Balthagar Draceryos circled above on Anaxigon, his silver-scaled great dragon an omen of flame and fury. The fleet moved with precision, man-o'-wars at the center, galleons flanking, frigates darting like hunting hounds. Lord Gelionar commanded from the obsidian flame, his voice a steady presence across the decks. Lycor Costagar and Raynor Gelionar fought fiercely, cutting down Ironborn who dared to board, their blades flashing in the sun. But it was Gelionar who faced Alton Greyjoy in brutal single combat upon the burning deck of the Sea Drinker. The two clashed like titans, Valyrian steel against salt-forged iron. Alton Greyjoy, third son of Lord Varone Greyjoy, swung his axe in wide, savage arcs, bellowing oaths to the drowned god, salt and bone charms rattling with each strike. But Gelionar, marshal of the Valyrian army, wielded the twin Valyrian steel blades of House Gelionar, Ashbane, a white silverish sword that gleamed like moonlight on still water, and Shadowrend, a dark, blackish blade that drank the light around it. Seasoned and unyielding, Gelionar moved with lethal precision, his blades a storm of steel and fury. He parried Alton's savage strikes with Ashbane, countered with the biting edge of Shadowrend, driving the Ironborn admiral back, step by step, across the blood-slicked deck of the Sea Drinker. Alton howled, but it was a desperate, dying sound. With a final, vicious crosscut, Gelionar's twin blades flashed, a blur of light and shadow, and Alton Greyjoy crumpled, gasping, his body a ruin of blood and shattered bone. He lay amidst the broken timbers, barely breathing, his eyes glazed but still flickering with defiance, clinging to life by a thread. The battle raged for hours. The Ironborn fought like madmen, but they were no match for Valyrian steel, disciplined ranks, and the fury of dragons. The Valyrian fleet crushed them, 15 Ironborn ships captured, the rest burned or sunk. The survivors, a broken remnant of perhaps 1,200 men, were rounded up on the rocky shore, chained and beaten, forced to kneel beneath the banners of House Draerios. The dead were laid in grim, orderly rows upon the sand, thousands of Ironborn corpses, a testament to the price of their folly. The sea ran dark with blood, the cries of the dying swallowed by the endless waves. As the last screams faded, the Valyrian captains turned to the horizon, where another fleet approached, 20 ships, fresh reinforcements bearing the banners of Draceryos, sent from the demon fort of Costagar. And in the skies, a terrible roar echoed across the water, Azantius. Balthagar Draceryos descended, mounted upon the crimson comet, flanked by Egovax and Amberian, the dragon's wings casting vast shadows across the sea. The battle was done, but the war had only just begun. 0 comments 0 vote. Ashes of Defiance. MC Apparence added into its own auxiliary chapter, Balthagar Draceryos, as well as maps and more. Western coastline of the lands of the long summer, 187 AD 85 AC. The western shores of the lands of the long summer lay beneath a slate sky, dark waves licking the sand, the scent of salt, iron, and ash thick in the air. The battle was done, its echoes carried still upon the wind, but the work had only begun. Azantius descended in a roar of wing and flame, his scales gleaming like molten metal, an infernal beacon in the gray sky. His wings stirred the sea into froth as he landed upon the beach, sending sand and smoke spiraling in every direction. Upon his back, Balthagar Draceryos dismounted, his Valyrian steel armor catching the faint, dying light like liquid shadow. Stormbringer rested at his side, the family blade reborn in his hand. With him came Lord Balerius and his son, Valen, mounted on their dragons, Egovax, whose golden scales gleamed like a burning sun, and Amberian, a bronze-winged Wyrm with gray-brownish scales. They landed a short distance behind, their presence a quiet, simmering threat upon the scorched shoreline. Balthagar strode forward, the sand shifting beneath his boots, his gaze sweeping across the scene of slaughter and grim victory. Lord Costagar and Lord Gelionar stood at the heart of it, flanked by their sons, Lycor and Raynor, and by Balthagar's own brothers, Balon and Eginar. The young Draceryos princes were streaked with blood and salt, their hair tangled, their swords crusted with gore, yet when they turned and saw Balthagar, they faltered. Awe filled their eyes, a hesitant, wide-eyed wonder at the sight of their elder brother, transformed in stature and presence. It had been scarcely 4 moons since they last laid eyes on him, since the funeral of their parents and eldest brother. And yet now, before them, he seemed carved from myth itself. Balthagar's gaze softened. He ruffled their hair, a quiet gesture of brotherly pride. Well fought, he murmured, his voice low, the edge of command softened by familial warmth. I heard of your deeds. You have done well. Eginar grinned, breathless, eyes bright. Balon simply nodded, his exhaustion visible but his pride unhidden. Lycor and Raynor lingered behind, their own gazes a mixture of respect and caution. Lord Costagar and Lord Gelionar approached then, bowing low. Their sons followed suit, heads dipping in deference. My prince, Gelionar spoke, voice firm yet edged with awe, it seems you have succeeded, in what you sought to do. Balthagar inclined his head, his tone even but resonant with power. The first step is complete. Soon, I shall reforge the rest, Stormbringer, the armor, the blood ring. The crown, that will come in its time. Lord Costagar nodded grimly. Then you shall have this, my prince. He extended a bundle, wrapped in cloth. Balthagar unwrapped it to reveal Red Rain, the Valyrian steel blade of House Drum. The heir of House Drum lies before you, and the others as well. Costagar gestured to where the prisoners knelt, chained and beaten. Alton Greyjoy, third son of Lord Verone Greyjoy, a good brother's son, snarling and broken, and the drum heir, eyes wide with terror. Behind them, the surviving Ironborn, over 1,000, perhaps 1,200 souls, knelt in chains, surrounded by dragon guards, dragon hunters, and mages. The dead, thousands of Ironborn, lay in ordered rows, their corpses stripped and prepared, the stench of death and salt thick in the air. Balthagar's gaze fixed upon Alton Greyjoy. The Ironborn's eyes flickered, not with defiance, but with dread. The Reavers had witnessed horrors beyond their imagining, dragonflame, sorcery, the wrath of Valyria, and the madness in their eyes had faded into hollow, haunted despair. Balthagar stepped forward, his voice quiet, cutting through the roar of the waves. Tell me, Greyjoy, why did the squid think it wise to cross into these waters? These lands have been Draceryos' territory for centuries. We have burned the slavers and pirates for 100 years. Did you think your saltborn god would protect you? Alton shuddered, his breath ragged. He mumbled incoherent pleas, his body trembling. Let me go. I won't come back, never again. I swear it. A grin curled Balthagar's lips, sharp and cold. That is not what I want. He turned, his voice rising. Look, see what happens to those who dare test Draceryos' might. He reached for the good brother's son, placing his hands upon the man's head. His palms glowed, the air shimmering with heat. With a surge of power, Balthagar ignited the man's skull, flames consuming flesh in an instant. The Ironborn's scream was cut short, snuffed as his head burned to blackened bone. Gasps and cries echoed across the beach, Valyrian warriors, mages, even lords recoiling at the display. The sheer control, the raw fury, the artistry of destruction, it was a spectacle few could comprehend. Without pause, Balthagar turned to Lord Costagar and extended his hand. Costagar wordlessly handed him Red Rain. Balthagar approached the drum heir, the man trembling, tears streaking through dirt and blood. Balthagar's hands ignited once more, and Red Rain, Valyrian steel itself, heated under his touch, glowing a dull, angry red. Slowly, deliberately, he warped the blade, deforming its sleek lines into twisted, jagged, grotesque shapes. The weapon, once a symbol of legacy, was now a shattered, molten abomination. With a brutal thrust, Balthagar drove the ruined Red Rain into the drum heir's chest. The man gasped, a strangled, broken cry, and then fell still, the blade embedded in his heart, the heat cauterizing flesh and bone. The Ironborn screamed, but their wails were swallowed by the sea. Balthagar turned to Alton Greyjoy. His eyes burned like twin coals. Without a word, he stepped forward, unsheathed Stormbringer. In a calculated, merciless rhythm, he severed Alton's limbs, first one arm, then the other, then his legs, cauterizing the wounds as he went, the stench of scorched flesh rising. Alton sagged, barely alive, twitching in agony. Then Balthagar carved Sith runes into his body, runes of pain, of binding, of unending torment. They flared briefly as they settled into his flesh, scars that would never heal, marks that would forever scream with agony. The Ironborn knelt in silence, broken, cowed, shivering in fear. Let him suffer, Balthagar growled, his voice low and sharp as a blade. Let the world see what becomes of those who dare challenge the true dragons. The gruesome work began. 5 of the 15 captured Ironborn ships, including the Seadrinker, were chosen. The dead, thousands of Ironborn corpses, were dragged, mutilated, and arranged with grim precision. Heads were lined along rails and sails, dead eyes staring out in mute warning. Bodies, limbs, and half-torsos were nailed, hung, and displayed, a grotesque gallery of death. On the deck of the Seadrinker, Alton Greyjoy hung chained to the prow, a living, writhing figurehead of dread. The good brother son and the drum heir's bodies were hanged upon the sails of the Seadrinker, red rain still embedded in the drum's chest. Valyrian runes were carved across the ships, imbued with power by Balthagar's hand and the master mages. They would sail, untouchable, a grim procession of horror, drifting past Volantis, the disputed lands, the stepstones, the coasts of Dorne, the Reach, and finally to the Arbor. Each port, each sailor, each noble who glimpsed them would see the message carved into the backs of the dead, a single, brutal declaration. Here lies the fate of those who dare test the blood of old Valyria. Fire and shadow shall claim all who defy Draceryos. The true dragons rise, let the world tremble. Balthagar watched from the shore as the ships, powered by blood and rune, slipped into the sea, drifting away, a nightmare set upon the waves. The world would see. The world would know. He turned, meeting the gazes of the lords and their sons. Costagar's face was grim satisfaction, Gelianar's tight-lipped and shadowed by awe. Lycor, Rayner, Balon, Eginar, each stood silent, the weight of what they had witnessed heavy upon them. Balthagar's voice was quiet, final. This is the price of arrogance. Let none forget it. The waves lapped at the shore. The scent of salt, ash, and blood lingered, heavy in the wind. And so, the world would learn. The wind howled across the blackened shores, carrying the scent of ash, salt, and charred flesh. The Ironborn dead lay in grim order, their bodies contorted in final agony, while the enslaved survivors, over 1,000, huddled in chains, branded upon their foreheads with Valyrian runes of binding. These marks gleamed faintly under the touch of mage fire, an eternal curse upon their flesh, ensuring their pain would be felt, their bodies tracked, their spirits broken. The living would serve, the dead, they had already been shaped into a message for the world. Balthagar stood at the shore, his Valyrian steel armor gleaming darkly beneath the rising sun. Stormbringer rested across on his left hip, humming faintly with caged power. His gaze lingered on the horizon, where the twisted Ironborn ships, the Seadrinker leading the fleet, sailed away, their grotesque cargo destined to drift past the ports of Essos and Westeros alike. He watched in silence, knowing the message would be heard, would be feared. The sea whispered, but his mind was elsewhere, focused, calculating. He turned toward the waiting assembly. The mages of the Blood and Fire orders stood in quiet reverence, some whispering incantations over the runes inscribed into the ships, ensuring their passage would not falter. The shadows, veiled and silent, watched from the periphery, their dark eyes reflecting no emotion. Lord Costagar and Lord Gelianar conferred quietly, their sons standing nearby, Lycor, Rayner, Balon, Eginar, all of them scarred by the battle, their faces marked with the weight of what they had witnessed. Balthagar's voice broke the silence, low and edged like a blade. The sea remembers. The world will remember. He moved through the gathering, his gaze falling briefly on Alton Greyjoy. The Ironborn Lord hung chained to the prow of the Seadrinker, limbs severed, runes burning into his flesh, his screams long since reduced to hollow, ragged moans. Balthagar's expression remained cold, but a flicker of satisfaction burned in his eyes. A living message. A creature reduced to a warning. As the last of the preparations were completed, the fleet began to shift once more. Survivors were divided, Ironborn workers herded onto Valyrian ships under watchful eyes, while the Valyrian dead were honored in quiet rites, their bodies burned in controlled pyres. The mages and the masters led the rites, inscribing the final runes of protection and remembrance. Lord Costagar approached, his expression grim but resolute. My prince. The work is done. The sea belongs to us once more. Balthagar nodded. His gaze drifted skyward, where Azantius circled, his presence a blazing sun in the heavens. The great dragon's scales shimmered like molten metal, and his roar echoed across the shore, a sound that seemed to shake the bones of the earth itself. Balthagar's voice, when it came, was quiet, almost reflective. This is but the beginning. He turned to the lords, his brothers, and the gathered forces. His eyes burned, eyes of the dark side, of power reforged. Prepare the fleet. We sail for home. The command set the beach into motion. Soldiers, mages, and shadows alike moved with purpose. Ships were loaded, banners unfurled, and the Valyrian fleet formed its lines once more, a storm reborn. The surviving Ironborn slaves were chained in the holds, their fate sealed. Later, in the quiet of his solar aboard the flagship, Balthagar retrieved a blank journal from his saddle bag, the one he took from the dungeons before coming to the western shore, an empty Draceryos journal. He bound it in his blood, sealing its cover with the mark of House Draerios, a roaring dragon wreathed in flame. He sat beneath the flickering light of a Valyrian glass candle, the ink glinting dark as blood, and began to write. His pen carved the story into parchment, the battle, the blood price paid, the message sent. He wrote not as a man from another world, but as Balthagar Draceryos, the dragon reborn. He wrote of his power, his vision, his family, the legacy he was forging with blood, fire, and will. He did not write of the Force, the Sith, or the world beyond. Those were his alone to carry. But the pages burned with the tale of a man becoming something more. A prince of Valyria. A Sith of fire and shadow. As the fleet sailed back toward Valyria, the echoes of the battle drifted across the waves. Whispers began to stir in the free cities, in Volantis, in Slaver's Bay, whispers of the Ironborn ships that drifted past, grotesque warnings born of madness and might. Whispers of Draceryos' wrath, of the dragons that soared once more, of a power rising in the ashes of the doom. And as the fleet drew closer to home, Balthagar's gaze remained fixed on the horizon. His journey had only begun. 0 comments 0 vote. The Weight of Flame. The Demon Fort of Draceryos, 187 AD, 85 AC. 4 days had passed since the Ironborn were broken on the western shores of the lands of the long summer. Now, the demon fort of Draceryos stirred with life, its vast, fortified expanse a testament to the legacy of Valyria reborn. The thick walls of dragonstone loomed like the bones of ancient dragons, crowned with jagged battlements. The fort's massive gates, carved with runes of flame and shadow, marked the 2 entrances, both heavily guarded, warded, and watched by dragon guards and dragon hunters. Within, the sprawling city fort thrived. Marketplaces buzzed, training yards clashed with the ring of steel, and banners of the Draceryos family, deep crimson, with a dragon of flamewinged glory clutching a laurel over a flaming sun, hung proudly above the battlements. The edges of the banners blazed in red streaks, the bottom tongues of fire. At the heart of it all, upon the hill where the Draceryos manse rose, Balthagar Draceryos sat within the grand hall. The hall was vast, grander than any Westerosi castle dared imagine. Columns of black stone and veins of glowing magma-like ore held the weight of the high-arched ceilings. 20 great hearths lined the chamber, their fires crackling softly, casting long shadows across the polished tables of rare woods, their surfaces carved with Valyrian patterns of flame, wings, and ancient glyphs. At the far end of the hall, Balthagar sat upon the dragonstone throne, a massive seat of blackened stone shaped like a dragon's maw, its eyes hollow and fierce. Behind him, the largest banner of House Draerios unfurled in the torchlight, its woven threads catching the flicker of flame. He wore no armor now, but rather the regalia of a Valyrian prince, black robes trimmed in red and gold, with dragon clasps at his shoulder blades. His hair, like molten silver, cascaded just above his shoulders, like a wild mane, and his fiery amber eyes watched the chamber with measured calm. Stormbringer rested at his side, humming faintly with caged power. Before him stretched a long table, heavy with food and wine, roasted meats, spiced fruits, golden breads, and Valyrian glass pitchers gleaming under the light. Yet Balthagar touched none of it. His mind drifted, sharp, calculating, through the storm that brewed beyond these walls. He thought of the reforging soon to come, Stormbringer, his family's Valyrian steel armor, and the blood ring, all to be reforged using the forbidden arts of Sith sorcery. The rune forging, the ritual bindings, the reshaping of Valyrian steel with the strength of fire and shadow. He would see it done in the days ahead, before he turned his gaze upon Mardavia, where the last volcano pulsed with ancient power. There, his plans would take root. He knew the heretic Targaryens, Aenar the exile's descendants, would not remain idle. They would respond, driven by arrogance and ignorance, and when they did, the world would feel the price of their defiance. His musings broke as the great doors of the hall groaned open, revealing the nobles of Valyria, their significant other and their children following in their wake. The high seats of power had come as summoned. Lord Valys Baleres, Lord Baenair Matarion, Lord Marys Costagar, and Lord Galion Gelionar, Lord Reman Tyveros, Lord Laner Embarion, Lady Kayla Magiros. From the vassal cities came the others, Lord Galix Azanton of Tolos, Lord Tyraiver Zobrador of Mantares, Lord Malimar Ilver of Illyria. Balthagar's gaze swept over them all, his presence a weight pressing into their bones. One by one, they bowed their heads. Welcome, he said, his voice low, measured, yet resonant with an edge that cut deep. We have much to discuss. They seated themselves, the vast table filling with the sound of shifting chairs and the faint clink of goblets. Balthagar's eyes burned with focus. The world is watching, he began, his voice steady, cold flame beneath calm words. The Ironborn have been broken, their dead carved into warnings, their ships drifting across the seas. And yet, this is only the beginning. He leaned forward, hands steepled before him. The Westerosi will not ignore this insult. Aenar the exile's descendants, his pathetic line, will answer, as fools do, with hot blood and blind pride. Let them come. We will teach them the cost of arrogance. His gaze passed over the assembled lords. We will not wait for the storm to strike us. We will shape it. They spoke of the battle, of what had been seen. The lords of Tolos, Mantares, and Illyria spoke cautiously, but with respect, aware of the power Balthagar now commanded. The others, Baleres, Costagar, Gelionar, they spoke with grim pride, recounting the blood price paid and the strength of Valyria. Balthagar listened, his mind already 5 steps ahead. He would reforge Stormbringer, the family armor, and the blood ring in the coming day, using the knowledge drawn from the depths of sorcery and the soul of fire itself. Once complete, he would depart for Martavia, to oversee its final phase of construction, the city of flame and shadow rising from the bones of the last volcano. There, the true rebirth would begin. The lords debated the wider world's reaction, the whispers that would soon echo through the free cities, the nervous eyes of Westeros, the silent fear of Qohor and Lorith, inspoken allies of Draceryos, their intentions quiet but firm. Balthagar said little, only enough to guide, to shape, to remind them all that the true dragons had risen, and the world would tremble. 2 weeks after the battle, the ships reached the arbor. The Sea Drinker drifted into the harbor, its sails ragged and dark, its deck a horror of severed bodies, heads, and limbs arranged in grotesque art. The tortured body of Alton Greyjoy, limbless, chained to the prow, moaned, and writhed, a breathing symbol of dread. The incinerated skull of the good brother hung above the deck, his house's arms marked upon scorched banners, while the drum heir's corpse lay sprawled across the deck, red rain, deformed, twisted, still embedded in his chest. Carved into the backs of the dead, the message spoke in High Valyrian. Here lies the fate of those who dare test the blood of old Valyria. Fire and shadow shall claim all who defy Draceryos. The true dragons rise, let the world tremble. Panic spread across the arbor like wildfire. The news raced from Dorne to the Wall, across the kingdoms of Westeros, and beyond the narrow sea. The Ironborn lords gathered at Pike, their tempers smoldering. The good brother lord seethed, the drum heir's father howled for vengeance, but their fury crumbled beneath the weight of fear. The few smiths in Essos capable of reforging Valyrian steel had refused Lord Drum, terrified of Draceryos' wrath. Even Verone Greyjoy, lord of the Iron Islands, though furious at the fate of his son, hesitated, his voice sharp yet laced with caution. He had sent a raven to King Jaehaerys, seeking guidance. In the free cities, Volantis, Lee, Tyrosh, the whispers deepened into dread. They spoke not only of the Ironborn's folly, but of Draceryos' might, the legacy of old Valyria awakening once more. Fear whispered of unspoken allies of Draceryos, Qohor and Lorith, watching, waiting. In King's Landing, the council met in tense, uncertain silence. The memory of Aegon's sister wife, Visenya, echoed, a tale of quiet shame, of her flight from Draceryos' lands, Vhagar wounded and refusing to fly for weeks. What had truly happened there, none knew, save perhaps Aegon, Rhaenys, and Maegor, and they had taken that knowledge to their graves. King Jaehaerys sat in quiet contemplation, his fingers steepled, his face shadowed with thought. He asked of Corlys Velaryon, the famed sea snake, where was he? A message came. Corlys had just returned to Driftmark from his 7th voyage. Perhaps he, more than any, would know the truth of the Draceryos' legacy, and the shape of the storm that now loomed on the horizon. The world waited. And the dragons stirred. 0 comments 0 vote. The Heralds of Flame. 4 days had passed since the council had convened on the matter of the Ironborn ships, their grotesque cargo drifting into the arbor, and King Jaehaerys had summoned Kurlees Velaryon to King's Landing. The Red Keep's council chamber, a grand hall of stone and timber shaped by Andals and their gods, was stark and heavy with tension. Crimson banners bearing the three-headed dragon of House Targaryen hung above, flickering in the torchlight, a reminder of the blood that ruled here. King Jaehaerys sat at the head of the long table, his hands folded upon the smooth wood, face schooled into cold determination. Queen Alysanne sat beside him, her gaze thoughtful yet strained. Prince Aemon and Prince Balon flanked their father, their postures rigid, their eyes sharp with unspoken resolve. The doors opened, and in strode Kurlees Velaryon, Lord of the Tides, saltworn and weathered from the trials of his 7th voyage, his cloak still damp with sea spray. He bowed low, a flicker of calculation in his eyes as he rose to meet the scrutiny of the gathered lords. Jaehaerys' voice was low, measured. Lord Kurlees. Speak. What have you seen of the Draceryos territories? Corley's gaze swept the chamber, lingering a breath too long on the two princes before settling on the king. Your Grace. I have seen and heard much, though little I can claim to fully understand. He began, his tone steady, yet edged with a weight that made the air seem thinner. From the ports of Yeti, Leng, and the Summer Isles, I have heard whispers, of the Valyrian lords who rule the lands of the long summer with fire and blood. They do not answer to Westeros, nor to any power known. The merchants of Yeti refuse Westerosi coin, their trade bound by quiet agreements with Draceryos. Qohor and Lorith speak of them in hushed tones, as if fearing their very names. He paused, the silence in the chamber tightening. There are those who say no assassin dares take coin against them. Not the sorrowful men of Karth, nor the Pentoshi cat spas, nor even the faceless men of Bravos. The House of Black and White, long thought untouchable, was struck in the dead of night almost a century ago, bodies of half their number strung up from their rafters, their blood used to write a single message upon their walls: do not test the blood of the dragons. After that, no contract against Draceryos or their vassals has ever been fulfilled. A heavy silence settled over the room. Balon's jaw tightened, his fists clenched. Aemon's expression darkened, his knuckles whitening on the table. Kurlees continued, his voice like a tide rising against stone. Their fleets, formidable. They sail ships unlike any we know, man-o'-wars, galleons, frigates, vast and heavily armed. They have scoured the seas of pirates and slavers, turning their foes into chained laborers. Even I, on my voyages to Yeti, have found my trade hindered, merchants refusing my goods, citing their ties to Draceryos. He hesitated, then added, his tone low, cautious, there are rumors, too, of dragons. That the Draceryos hold 2 dragonlord families in vassalage, that at least one of them has dragons, though no one knows how many. And Balthagar Draceryos, it is said he rides a dragon unlike any other, its scales gleaming like molten metal, a terror in the skies. Jaehaerys' face tightened, a flicker of something, anger, perhaps, or pride, sparking in his eyes. Rumors, Lord Kurlees. Whispers and shadows. We are the blood of the conqueror, the blood of Aegon who forged this realm. We will not cower before stories spun by sailors and fearful merchants. Kurlees inclined his head, though his lips pressed into a thin line. Your Grace, I advise caution. There is much we do not know. To underestimate them. Balon's voice cut through, sharp and impatient. Enough caution. We are the blood of the dragon. Let us remind them of it. Jaehaerys' tone was final, cold as steel. I will ride Vermithor. Aemon will ride Caraxes. Balon, you will ride Vagar. We will remind them that we are not so easily defied. A hushed dread settled over the council, the weight of their decision hanging in the air like the stillness before a storm. The Demon Fort of Draceryos, 187 AD, 85 AC. The solar of the Draceryos manse within the Demon Fort was vast, its walls carved of dark dragonstone, its pillars veined with streaks of red and black. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting long beams across the polished table where Balthagar sat at its head. The banners of House Draerios, blood-red dragon with wings spread, laurel and flaming sun upon its chest, hung proudly behind him, a symbol of power reborn. Around the table sat the lords of Draceryos vassals, Baelys Baleres, Gulayan Gelionar, Marys Costagar, Reman Tyveros, Galix Azantone, Tyriavar Zobridor, Malimar Ilver, and Lady Kayla Magiros. Their expressions were a mix of respect, wariness, and anticipation. The heirs and families, those not seated here, were in the gardens below, enjoying the warmth of the sun before its descent. Balthagar's gaze was sharp, his voice a quiet storm that filled the room. The Targaryens will come. They will come in arrogance, blinded by the belief that they alone hold the flame. We will remind them, we are the flame reborn. You, your sons, and their sons will aid in the forging of a new Valyria. And I will show the world. He then turned his gaze to Lady Kayla, his tone leaving no room for debate. Send envoys to House Maegor and House Roger. Secure them under our banner. A scoff rose from Bailey's Baleres, though not at Balthagar. His lip curled, disdain etched in his tone. The Maegor and the Roger, lesser blood, always scraping for power they do not hold, seeking recognition since the time of Maelor. Balthagar's gaze shifted to him, sharp yet composed. And they will serve as a means to an end. They are Valyrian, holding ancient seats in Volantis and Lee. We will use them, and in doing so, expand our reach. Kayla inclined her head, her eyes gleaming with understanding and resolve. It will be done. Balthagar leaned back, his presence filling the chamber like the coiled heat of a volcano. His voice cut through the air, a promise etched in flame. In 2 days, I will reforge Stormbringer, the armor, and the blood ring. Then, I will meet the Targaryens. Alone. Bailey's shifted, his brow furrowed. My prince, let us stand with you. Egovax is ready. Balthagar's voice was soft, firm. No. They must see me alone. Let their imaginations feed the dread of what they cannot see. The lords exchanged glances, a silent understanding forged between them. They were bound to him, to his vision, to the path he carved through fire and shadow. Outside, the sun slipped lower, the sky streaked with crimson and gold, the colors of flame and blood. The storm approached, and Valyria's air stood ready to meet it.